Welcome to the Writer's Game Podcast, where we help you magnify your voice and monetize your message. And now, let's get into the show.
Welcome to the Writer's Game Podcast, where we help you magnify your voice and monetize your message. I am your host, Kyle King, and I have somebody here today that is a rock star. Is soon to be a best-selling author, somebody that is inspiring children across the world, but somebody with a story that has understood how to unpack that story, put it into a book, and is getting ready to share that story with the world. Tone, how you doing, brother?
Man, I'm great, Kyle. How are you?
Hey, man, I'm fantastic. So before we get started, could you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about who you are and how you're going to impact the world.
Yeah, most definitely. First and foremost, my name is Antonio Grate. I'm a kid from the south side of Chicago who experienced, some challenges growing up in the inner city of Chicago, which is also the reason why I decided to write this book, to also become a speaker, because of the various challenges that I experienced growing up in Chicago, and being at a place to where I actually managed to overcome them and be at a place where I would like to consider a successful place in my life. I wanted to really just give back to those individuals who have potentially experienced some of the same things that I experienced. So right now, man, I spend a lot of time speaking to at-risk youth. I'm going to school, speaking to students in the classrooms, assemblies, youth detention centers, and most importantly, one of my biggest passions is speaking to those that are in the foster care system or former foster care children.
Why is it important for you to share your story? What do you believe that does for people that hear your story?
It's interesting because recently I was talking to a group of students last week, and when I finished, one young lady said that after listening to me, she feels like she's not the only one now. She feels like she's not the only one that's experiencing and going through the things that she's been experiencing in her life. And most importantly, now she feels like she can do it. Now she feels like she can overcome it. Now she feels like she can win. And that's really the complete essence of the reason why I want to share my story.
That's so interesting that you say that, because I talk about that all the time. I said something here more recently that somebody's thinking about committing suicide today. Somebody's thinking about leaving their marriage today. Somebody is thinking about, walking out on their job today, or, doing something harmful to themselves or to others today, because they did not have your story on how, when you felt like that, you did X, Y, Z to overcome that feeling, right? So our stories are not just for us. They're to unpack and to unlock something else in somebody else, so that we can provide the direction, the guidance, and the overall blueprint for someone else to succeed. When you think about the most impactful story that truly shapes who you are in this present moment, what would you say that is?
Wow, that's a great question, Kyle. What I think how I would like to answer that question is, I just think about various spaces in my life and picking up the right book that spoke to me in that moment. It's amazing the transformation that takes place when that happens, and when that has specifically happened in my life. And ultimately, that's one of the important reasons of sharing your story, because there's someone who is looking for answers. There's someone who is looking for solutions. There's someone who has pains, and they're trying to navigate their way through the obstacles and through the challenges. And your book can be the book that they pick up at the right time to completely transform their lives.
Exactly. Why, I hear that you're now an author and
Yes, sir.
made it through the process, and we've been working together on the back end as well. How does it feel for you that first day that you received your book in the mail?
Because of my writing journey, it took a little time. I've always been anticipating that day, but it was like at the same time I had to be patient, So when it finally arrived, I was like, yo, like, hold on, like, like this right here, like, you know, like I'm grabbing a book, looking at the book, you know, like, whoa, like, you know, looking at the pictures on the back of the book, like that's me, you know, that's my name. And it's man, it was so gratifying, you know, it was so gratifying. So now it was like, now I'm going to be able to give the world a piece of me, you know, without actually physically being there. So man, it was amazing.
You know, that speaks volumes, what you just said. I want to be able to give the world a piece of me without being there. In my definition, that sounds like legacy. How important is it to be able to write a book that really sets the foundation for our legacy? But how important is legacy through your words, through your story, through your book? How important is that for you?
It's super important. It's super important as a father, as a husband. I have four wonderful young boys, and I remember going through this writing journey, and they would see me on my laptop. They would see me with papers and pens and pencils and different things, and they were like, "Dad, what are you doing?" I'm like, "Son, I'm working on my book." You working on your book? I'm like, "Yes, son." And then over a period of time, they were like, "Dad, are you finished with your book?" And I had the opportunity to say, "Yes, I'm finished with my book." And just that piece alone, I think plants an image and a seed within their minds that, yo, my dad is not just an author, but you know what? Shoot, if I decide to, I could write a book, or I can do something else that they may put their mind to. And I just think that it's these moments, the process that begins to create that legacy. Yes, the book is finished. Yes, you know, we want to generate sales and different things of that nature, but the example that we set in our own homes is priceless. And I think that's the start of a great legacy right there.
I think that's beautiful, that through your process of writing your book, it didn't just show you the importance of becoming an author, but it exposed your children, your sons, to more and being able to hope for, hey, I can have the opportunity of being an author. How important is it for us as individuals, whether it be men, professionals, entrepreneurs, just people in general, to expose people to hope?
It's everything. It's everything. And the reason why I say it's everything, because let me tell you this quick story. I remember as I was growing up in Chicago, man, I was at a place to where the environment that I lived in, man, it was the ghetto, right? It was considered one of the most ruthless nations, or one of the most ruthless cities in the nation at the time. And within this environment, I would like to call it toxic. You know, you see the drugs, the gangs, the prostitution, the crime, and different things of that nature. And my life really wasn't any different in the aspect that I'm an 80s baby, right? And in the early 80s, we're in a pandemic right now, but there was a drug epidemic that was on the rise. And this drug epidemic directly affected me. My mom, you know, was using drugs, my sister, my cousin, and we all lived in the same home. And because of my environment, I remember that I began to like lose hope in the aspect like this is all life has to offer. And I didn't like that. Like I didn't like what I was seeing, and I didn't like feeling so defeated and so hopeless. And I remember one day I took a ride with my cousin to another part of town, and I was going for a swimming party. And I remember very vividly as I sat in the back seat of that car, as we transitioned from my neighborhood, getting closer to their neighborhood. And I was looking out the rear back window, and I noticed something that was very different from what I was used to. I noticed that the front yard grass in front of these houses was green, it was plush, and it didn't have the debris that I was used to seeing in the yards in my neighborhood. And literally, I was leaving my neighborhood to go to a swimming party, but it was that moment that literally changed my thought process. It began to change my outlook on life. And what it did was it said, you know what? There's more out here than what I'm seeing every day. And that for me was a bit of exposure that literally just opened my mind to opportunities and a whole new way of thinking and living. And it just infused me with hope that I didn't have before.
Exactly. I love that, man. I think that sometimes all the transformation in our life takes is a car ride to a different neighborhood. And I think so many people probably have had that moment in their life. And if you're listening to this, and if you haven't had that moment, then I recommend you hop on a bus or hop in an Uber or hop on a plane and go somewhere different, to being able to expose your perspective and increase or expand your lens from in which how you see the world. It's very important.
Absolutely.
And through your book, you do that. You talk about your story. You talk about the different things that you've been exposed to, but how you've overcome a lot of these challenges to be resilient and to continue to motivate people today. So tell us a little bit about your book and how you want to be able to make an impact with your book.
For sure. The title of my book is The Power of One, How Guardians Can Successfully Transition Their Foster Child into their new home. And really the purpose of this book is to bridge the relationship gap between the foster child and the foster parent. And because what you realize is that when a foster child comes into a home or to a foster parent's home, they don't know each other. Like, the foster parent might have been briefed on some of the issues with the child or circumstances with the child, but in essence, they don't know each other.
Exactly.
And this book is designed to give tips, tools, and strategies to help bridge that gap, to help cause that transition to be more successful. Because what I understand by being in the foster care system is that home, oh man, when that home and that transition can be as effective as possible, as peaceful as possible, it does wonders for the overall success of that child.
Walk me back a little bit. You said when you had experiences within the foster care system.
Yeah.
I want everybody to hear that. What was that experience like? And walk me kind of backwards so that we could be able to move forward.
The experience itself in its own unique way is traumatizing. And the reason why I say that is because anytime a child is placed in foster care, that simply means that they're not with their biological parents, right? They're not with their mom, they're not with their dad. And my experience in the foster care system was kinship care. And kinship care is when you're placed with a relative. It could be a grandmother, grandfather, aunt, cousin, someone like that, because the ultimate goal of the foster care system is to initially try to put the foster child with, a relative or something like that. But nevertheless, it's still traumatizing because you're uprooted from your parents and everything of that nature. So for me, my initial turmoil was feeling rejected, feeling neglected, having a lot of questions of why is this happening? What's going on? What did I do? And man, it's a whirlwind of internal struggles, that you may have, and everybody's situation is absolutely different, but nevertheless, internally, there's a lot of questions that individuals have, and I know I did.
So question for you, when you think about this experience in foster care and you think about you feeling neglected, and you feeling this sense of deep down being unwanted, or you having these continuous ask about, why me in this situation, like why this, why that. Walk me through how your book answers those questions for a child that's currently going through that, or even preparing a parent that their child is going to be going through that.
Oh man, that's a great question. In this book, I intentionally and strategically really share a lot of my internal struggles, right? And I do that for two reasons. One reason I do that to give the foster parent some insight, right? To give them some insight in regards to what their foster child could be experiencing, because they probably would never express it, or not initially. And then I do that too to also speak to their foster child, because what I realized at a young age is that I was going through things. I didn't know how to express it. I didn't know how to internalize it. I didn't understand it. And I believe that by me sharing my story, that it will begin to help those children to begin to understand better what's going on with them, as well as the foster parent helping them to understand what could potentially be going on with the child. And because of those experiences, I share some tips and tools that can help the foster parent. How can I say this? I'm gonna say better understand the child. And if you better understand the child, then you'll make some different decisions. I think a lot of foster parents have great intentions, when it comes to a child. But the one thing that's truly different is that you can have great intentions, but if you don't know, you don't know. So that's my ultimate goal, is to help those foster parents to think about something. Like I'll tell you some things I share in my book, but I share things in my book I would like to think to cause a foster parent to just think. And if you could just begin to think, I think that would also help them kind of change some of the decisions that they make in regards to dealing with the foster child.
I love that. I think what you said is profound. Intention without understanding hurts the opportunity to implement success strategies. So we all have great intentions, but if you don't take time to understand that other person's, whether it be wants, their needs, their environment that they came from, what's going to be able to help progress them through, understand that process that it's going to take, then it's going to be hard for you to implement anything that when they came in, you wanted to be able to implement. It's not about just buying them gifts or taking them places or taking them to dinners or giving them a room or giving them food or giving them a roof. It's so much more unpacking that you have to do in regards to people before you could really be able to impact that child that just came from, like you said earlier, that situation that was full of turmoil, trauma and toxicity in a sense, because before we can understand what we need to do, we have to have an understanding on why it's even important to do it. So I think your book does that. Your book definitely does that. And I'm excited for you to share it with the world. If there was somebody on here that could listen and that is like, wow, this is a book that I want to be able to take advantage of, what's that one sentence or that one message to that person that's listening right now that is potentially going through exactly what your book talks about?
Oh, wow, that's great. One word, be grateful. I'm gonna say it again, be grateful. And that piece right there is so important to me because that's literally my superpower. That was literally my superpower to be able to endure the various transitions, the various challenges, the various emotional struggles that I was dealing with at that time. And because of that, what it did was it allowed me to be grateful. I'll put it to you like this. Be grateful is a message of hope, love, and victory. So when I began to look at life in that way, it gave me hope. It gave me self-love. And then it helped me to begin to overcome the various challenges that I was facing. Because I assure you that when you're dealing with any type of trauma, it hurts. And the longer you deal with it, the harder it gets to really pull yourself out of it. And also too, man, sometimes the situations, even though they're not your fault, sometimes it just cause you to look at yourself in a negative way. But at the same time, when I tapped into be grateful, just finding one thing that I could be thankful for, just finding one thing that I could be grateful for in the midst of all of my confusion, in the midst of all the cloudiness, in the midst of all the hopeless situations. When I was able to find one thing, I held on to that one thing close to my heart, and I allowed that one thing to propel me through every situation and circumstance. And I assure you, man, when you can find that one thing, it would definitely do that for you.
I'm reading this new book called Crushing by T.D. Jakes. And in the premise of the book is that we all have to go through a crushing season before we can become who we're destined to become, God's plan, right? And in the book, it talks about we all have to go through the season of going into a dirty place. And how he explains it is that all of us, every single human being on this world is a seed. But what is a seed that is not in the ground? A seed that is not in the ground has no purpose. Because if you think about the role of a seed, it's to go into the ground and to do what? To grow and to what? Produce fruit for the world.
That's right.
And then he continues and he talks about the process becoming from grape to greatness. And the process that wine goes through to crush the grapes. You have to crush the grapes before you're able to produce wine. And before you can serve wine, it has to go through an aging process. So anybody that's listening right now, anybody that's listening, you may feel like you're in a dirty place. You may be that child that is transitioning from home to home, and you may feel unloved. You may feel unwanted. You may feel like you don't understand why, but it's not up to you to figure out why. It's up to you, just like Antonio said just now, it's up to you to be grateful. And through your gratitude, if you can understand that, hey, this dirty place is allowing me to cultivate, it's allowing me to grow, it's allowing me to be harvested, it's allowing me to go through my gardening process, then you will be able to become the fruit and to be able to produce the fruit. But once you become the fruit, One thing that I need you to realize is that you're going to again go through another crushing season so that you can age, and then you could be able to be served through the world, through your calling. So don't allow that circumstance to hurt you from the calling that's already on your life. So when you think about these callings, when you think about these dreams, when you think about these visions that these children have the opportunity of seeing, I want you to speak to that child right now, because you went from foster child in this tough space to being able to now be an entrepreneur that wrote this book. And now you're inspiring these same children across the world. How did you do it?
Yo, wow. Kyle, man, listen, how did I do it? First and foremost, the first thing I think I want to say is that it's a process. It's a process, and everyone has their journey. And I'm using process and I'm using journey because it's not a quick fix, you know? And one thing I realized is that I had to be real with my reality. I had to be honest with my situations. I had to be honest with the fact that my mother was on drugs. I had to be honest with the fact that my dad didn't take me in. I had to be honest with the fact that I was living with relatives that I really didn't even know like that. And I had to be honest with these various feelings and emotions that I was dealing with. And by being honest with those things, it really allowed me to go into a place where I could begin to face them and overcome them. You know, I decided not to run from them. I decided to face them, deal with them, and overcome them, because really what you're facing and dealing with are internal emotions, internal struggles, internal traumas that you've experienced in your life. And those traumas are really designed to keep you from moving forward. And we're talking about a seed of greatness that's within you. See, that seed needs the right nutrients for it to flourish. And the trauma and the negative experience that we have experienced is the toxicity that causes the seed, or try to keep the seed from planting its roots deep to begin to grow and flourish. But what I did was I focused on my reality. And then also too, you know, I just began to try to strategically change my environment, because I understood that the people I talked to, the things that I watch, the things that I listen to, the music and various things of that nature, the books that I read, all plays a part in putting the proper nutrients into me that will cause that seed to be able to grow the roots deep and grow and eventually flourish for the world to see. And I just began to be intentional on that. I began to get an idea of what it is that I wanted, what it is that I desired. And I began to focus on that regardless if anybody else saw it or regardless if anybody else believed in it. I believed in it. I wanted it. I wanted to do something different. So the question I ask for you is that, what do you want? What do you want? What do you really want? What do you desire? Do you desire to be in a better place than where you are right now? Do you desire for your kids to have a completely different upbringing than what you had? What is it that you desire? Because it's that desire that's going to begin to help propel you and help cause you to make certain decisions that's going to lead you to the very thing that you dream of.
That's good. That's good. I think one thing, man, when you were speaking, I have something for you. I don't know. It's been downloaded to me, right? It's this model, and anybody that's listening right now, he was able to be real, right? And how he went from foster care, essentially victim of the foster care system, to now having victory and helping people transition through the foster care system, is this model called being real. And the R was, he had to face his reality. That's the R. He had to face his reality, and he had to accept where he was and still remain grateful through this transition. The E of the real model is that he had to get in an environment that could produce more fruit and could be able to propel him forward. Then he had to commit to the A, the activity that it took through pain, through trial, through tribulation, and continue to then get to the L, is with his legacy. He had to understand how to expose himself to more so that he can continue to be hopeful and be faithful, so that he can be the hope and faith in other people as well. And when he was able to first be real with himself, he's now been able to transition his life from now not understanding the story, not understanding that he was always the author of his story, and then transitioning to being the author of such an amazing story, The Power of One.
That's
So I
good, bro.
appreciate you. I appreciate you so much. Where can we find your book? What can we expect from your book in the future? And just talk to us a little bit about that.
The first place I would say go to find my book would be on my website, www.antoniograte.com. That's www.antoniograte.com. If you go there and the book isn't actually listed yet, just subscribe. And when it's actually be released, we'll let you know that. And what you can expect from it. Listen, my goal and my desire is to really bring hope to youth of all ages, but especially, like I say, to those in the foster care system, because the harvest is plenty, but the laborers are few, right? And I realize that, you know, we go through things for a reason, and we come out of things for a reason. And I believe we go through things and come out of things for a reason to really go back and lend a helping hand and pull others out. And that's what I want to do, man. I just really want my story to be shared to as many individuals as possible, because I just want to lend that helping hand, man, to help individuals come out of the situations that they're in and begin to live a victorious life.
If you could think about 60 seconds to share any message with the world, and every single person in this world that is experiencing what you had to experience, 60 seconds, what would you say to those people?
Wow, 60 seconds. I think I would say that I just like the seed of greatness piece, right? And in life, oftentimes we have to pay for the mistakes that others make. And that's a hard pill to swallow, because we're not asked to be in this, we're not asked to come into this world, but we are here. And because of the decisions that someone else has made, it has negatively or positively affected us. And for me, the decisions that my mother made, the decisions that my father made negatively affected me. But what I realize now as I look back on that process is that you do not have to become your experiences, or you do not have to become your environment. You can create the type of environment that you want to create. You can live the type of life that you want to live. It's just that oftentimes we have to take the small steps to get to the big picture. And the small steps oftentimes are hard to see because our internal feelings, our internal emotions are just so cloudy. So what I simply want to say is that you have a seed of greatness within you. We all do. But the seed simply needs the right nutrients to flourish. But if you can believe that you can achieve whatever it is that you want to achieve, just begin to take the small steps, whatever they may be. Just begin to take the small steps day by day, hour by hour, you know what I'm saying, minute by minute. But I assure you, in due time, you will get what it is that you desire.
Perfect. The last thing that I want to end with is, could you talk a little bit about your experience? Because you've been a part of the writer's game, right? You've been a part of the writer's game and everything that we've been able to share, because the overall goal in this mission that we are on is to, again, magnify people's voices, because there's so many voices that they don't believe that they have a voice. There's so many children's voices that don't speak up. There's so many adults' voices or dreams or visions that are never realized. So the goal is to magnify people's voices and on the back end monetize their message, because there's so much fruit, there's so much value in what people have to share with the world through their own experience. So could you talk a little bit about your experience through the writer's game?
Absolutely. I would love to. First and foremost, I would just like to say, Kyle, man, I appreciate you, because it's clear that you are very genuine in what it is that you do. You're very authentic in wanting to help authors to get their story out there. And when I say authentic and genuine, you're not even thinking about yourself, right? You're really thinking about others, and it comes through in everything that you do. And you go far and above with everything, with everyone you have with me. And this process, man, has been amazing. Your course, for example, oh my gosh, your course is super detailed, right? It has like everything in there. And if you can't find something, Kyle is right there to help you find it, but it has everything in there from A to Z, whatever you think that may be, it has everything in there. And the strategy, the marketing strategy, that piece is absolutely amazing too. And that's where I'm currently at right now in that process. I'm looking forward to really begin to implement those things. But the process and this journey has been very seamless. It's been amazing. And it's been very, very beneficial all the way around.
I appreciate you, brother. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Your story is significant. Your story is significant. I heard something one time by Pastor Furtick at Elevation Church here in Charlotte. And he was talking about this story in regards to Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton was working through an audio book, and he was working with an audio engineer. And they were trying to take one of Bill Clinton's books through this process of trying to figure out what's staying in the book and what's leaving, because the audio version would have been too long. So it got to the part of the scandal, and Bill Clinton looked at the audio engineer and was like, is this significant? And the audio engineer looked back at Bill Clinton and said, yes, Mr. President, this is significant. Oftentimes we try to exclude the very stories that will empower the nation. We try to minimize the very things that will be miracles for other people. Good. And we don't believe that the things that when we felt abandoned will advance other people. So I want to just share with you right now that I'm super proud of you. I'm super excited for you to being able to step in to the position that I believe that God has called you to step into. And I am inspired by your transition from turmoil to triumph, in a sense. And I'm excited for anybody that's listening to this message, anybody that's listening to this podcast episode. I want you to go purchase this book. I want you to go purchase 5 books. And I want you to give those to even people that maybe are never a part of the foster care system, because the very things that you have privileged in your life right now, the very things that you don't look at as opportunities or places of gratitude, when you understand other people's perspectives, when you understand other people's struggles, when you understand other people's tribulation, it will allow you to serve different. It will allow you to work differently, and it will allow you to become different. So close us out with one more message for our listeners, and then I'll close us out.
Ooh, Cal, man, it's hard to follow up behind that, because you so eloquently said those things. One message. Wow. I think I would simply say that you have a story. Like, and this is how I'm gonna say this, Kyle. And I'm all about being transparent. To be honest with you, Kyle, man, I have the books in hand, but I wasn't like excited like I should be, or I felt like I should be to really just share my message. And I was thinking about that, and I was like, why, Antonio, why aren't you as excited as you really should be? And then I realized that there was still a part of me that kind of felt like, man, I don't really know if the stuff in my book is really that significant. I don't really know if it's that important to people. And then I had someone read my book, and they said, listen, Antonio, this book is phenomenal. This book is great, man. You really get a lot of good things in here, and it can help a lot of people. Listen to me, I'm telling you. And I believe that person was sent by God to tell me that, because this person literally read the whole book, critiqued it, and just was pouring out his heart with just how happy he was with the work that I did. And when I thought about that, it like rejuvenated me. It reminded me like, yo, this is why you wrote the book. This is why you did what you did. This is why we got to get this out there, because it really is beneficial, because it really will be impactful, because what you said and your story really is important. So I want to simply say is that even though you may think you don't have a story, and you may think your story is insignificant, I simply want to tell you that's not the case. Your story matters. Your story needs to be shared. And I'm telling you, link up with Kyle, and he will make sure that happens. And I'm just gonna leave it at that, Kyle.
I appreciate you, brother. Everybody listening, thank you so much for listening. You are on the Writer's Game podcast with Kyle King and my brother Antonio Grate, where we help you magnify your voice and monetize your message. I want you to use this message. I want you to use the information that you've been shared and go implement it. Go be grateful. Go get and start to understand your reality first. Where are you right now? And then we want you to understand how to get into the right environment. And once you get into the environment, commit to that activity because your legacy matters. Your legacy matters. Just like Antonio said, your story matters. And we appreciate you. Go believe in your story. Go write your story and go publish your story with the Writers Game. We'll see you guys next episode.